realities that came with Islam and the teachings of the Prophet, Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, covered all of those. So it's not something foreign to our religion. We know which surahs to recite when we think we're having problems with them and they're located in the same place and they're not acting properly. When we call the call to prayer, when we call it out loud, that's also supposed to cleanse that environment. So our life is a life to understand and coexist with these different creatures, to scare away the bad ones and to call upon and inspire the good ones whom are pious and who pray and who want a home in which praise. So that's why a lot of the Sufi traditions, the chantings, the zikrs, all of these practices, it encourages very pious spiritual beings to live amongst us. And as a result of their living amongst us, many of the bad ones will run away because of their presence. But they require the home to be clean, the character of people to be clean, that the praying to be taking part into the home, certain creatures to sort of be away from that area. So there's all these different understandings and teachings. That's why I said it's like a science for us. It's not something that we have to guess. It's something that we live. And when the shaykhs go into seclusion and they do 40-day seclusions in which they're isolated, they're given certain things to recite and their teachers are sort of spiritually watching over them, that realm begins to open by the grace of God and begins to teach them. So it's not again a philosophy, for them it's a reality. And as a result they can guide people on what to wear, what to recite and how to approach this. Sleep, what's the one, paralysis, all of these are jinn attacks. Because everyone has it and Islam has it, where people comes and say, okay, something has just jumped onto my stomach at night, and you give them a taweez, give them to recite. The Prophet of Islam came and said that wash before you sleep every night, recite these certain surahs of the Qur'an, blow upon yourself and sleep in peace. So all these practices came for a reason, because we have to live amongst God's creation, and they are about what, 10 times more than us. For every human there's 10 of them, for every snake there's 10 of their snakes, for every cat there's 10 of their cats. They have a whole kingdom, they have a whole creation, and they live amongst us, and we have to just deal with them and to be more spiritual and build our spiritual energy.
I know, Cameron, I'm sure you want to ask a question here, but it just occurs to me, it's fascinating to me, this notion that there is another parallel, really it sounds jinn society. I mean it sounds like that they have homes and lives and so on. And
sure,
I wonder,
animators know, when you do animation,
right,
you draw in layers, right?
Yes.
You draw the scenery one layer, then you put the rocks on another layer, then you put the character on another layer, and it may be like 6 layering. And Adobe Graphics is the same, layers it's called. We are the same. We have many different layers existing within this space, because God's not going to waste any space.
Then they come into our realm, if you will, and can impact us. Do we ever peer into their realm?
Yes, if they take you.
If they take you there.
Yeah, if they grab and take you into their realm. That's why there's also many teachings where people have been abducted and taken,
right,
and they've been taken into their realm. If one of them falls in love with a particular person, then takes them into their realm, and then that's why we have all these rules. You don't sleep naked, because they come in touch, they want to procreate, they want to grab. If they fall in love with someone, they want to take them into their realm. So there's many of these different sort of understandings. So definitely they're much more spiritually powerful, so they move between these different realms. Their technologies are far superior. Their lifespan is different than ours. Their lifespans are from 1,000, 15 to 3,000 years. So you can imagine the amount of technology that they have. And when they want to appear through a physicality, they manifest in different type of physical forms. Right now there's a covenant that if they manifest openly, they have the right to be killed, and awliya will go after them to destroy them. They've kept their covenant not to manifest. As a result, they pop in and out without openly declaring who they are and operating. As a result of that, they don't die. They be brought down and they remanifest, and their lifespans are very long lifespans, and their nature is fiery nature. They're not stable beings. As a result, their nations are always at war, and people are getting caught between their wars and their characteristics. They can be burned accidentally by actions that you do at your home. So different things that you may do could burn one of their creatures, one of their children, and they'll take a lifelong war with the person. And as a result, that person may think they have lifelong misfortune coming to them. Well, because that creature's life is 1500 years. So it would pass generationally towards a family. So yes, we have to understand that we coexist with them, and what's our duties and what's our protection and our understanding. But a society that doesn't understand anything about these things, then you can imagine that they have the upper hand.
They seem to. So this would explain a lot about such phenomena as, for example, Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Shaykh.
Yeah, I've watched the series on it.
It's a fascinating thing. I actually interviewed one of the men who broke that story, one of the journalists who broke that story, who first wrote about it, and they had personally spoken to a tribal policeman who had been driving along the road one night and came across two individuals that were basically, they looked like dogs in trench coats and hats, smoking a cigarette and leaning against the fence, which is absolutely bizarre. But in this context, it makes a certain amount of sense that perhaps the fabric around Skinwalker Ranch is weak, and it allows these jinn to come through and manifest. Is this?
No, it doesn't have to be weak at all. They have every right to manifest. It's for them like walking through a door, and their reality, because God created them as like an electricity with an enormous amount of knowledge, they can manifest as anything. They can manifest as a big cat head on a slim stick and walking down the street. They think that's their form of fashion. Their fashion is their imagination. Whatever they imagine, they can appear as, because that's their form of fashion. So that's no restriction. So Bigfoot, of course, if the guy wants to appear as hairy, he walks around hairy in the bushes. But as soon as humans appear, then they try to veil themselves not to be killed, because if they get shot in that state, they're going to vanish from that. But at the same time, they understand the covenant. If they start to appear, then they've broke their covenant, and they're no longer keeping the boundary of God, and their lifespans then will be shortened. And that's why we say the apocalyptic time is when the Antichrist comes, which we don't say Antichrist because that's just for Christians to think Antichrist. It means that the one whom comes to deceive all nations. So we have it in Islam that it is not the Antichrist, he's the deceiver. So Dajjal for us is called the deceiver. So he deceives every religious nation, every pocket of humanity, and he is of the jinn nature, and his armies are of the jinn nature. When they decide that they're going to show themselves and physically manifest themselves, then God gives command for the saints to attack and declare war against them. But for now, they're hiding themselves, so it's just teaching and going out and teaching people on how to build themselves, how to nourish themselves, and how to survive these difficulties. And this war that they talk about, it's not a physical war. The humans, they will attack each other and destroy each other because of the bad nature of the devils and the bad character. But what was important in the Lord of the Rings, this battle that's coming is from the unseen power. So when the humans were frail, what did they do? They went and asked for the allegiance of the king of the dead, and called them to come to be of service. And that's the same thing. When God rises and raises those whom have been given their spiritual realities, then it will be the unseen forces that come to the aid of humanity. Humanity by itself is very weak and unable to sort of survive that type of attack. So there's a lot that Islam and Sufism understand about the
Diego Flores with a 10 Peruvian soul super chat. Thank you, Diego. Says, may I ask, is it possible for people to be sensible to these forces and subconsciously try to warn us through works of fiction? like the daemons of 40K and their similarities with the jinn. So parallels in fiction warning us about this kind of thing.
Was that the same as like when we said in the beginning that all the movies, there's a message in many of them? Is that what we mean?
Mm-hmm. I
that
think
in the movies
and
pop culture and cartoons, many of these are being disclosed. So there's the one at night. What's the one at night? The gargoyles. Disney makes a cartoon called Gargoyles. Yeah, it's very real. Those statues, and that's why we don't have statues, because the negative forces, they occupy and they shelter themselves because they're electrical beings with no shelter. They shelter themselves within those statues, and Disney showed it. At night at 6 o'clock Maghrib time, they came walking out and they were walking around throwing things from the roof of the building. And it seems comical, but it's also a way to introduce themselves to children that don't fear me, I'm something nice, I'm funny, look, and it sort of diffuses the children to, oh, well, then it's commonplace for them, where they should be scared of, negative forces, negative creatures. They sort of want to familiarize themselves through popular cartoons and movies, which that can be very dangerous.
Yeah. No, I mean that's something so profound, because I've experienced that directly in Hollywood, where I've been asked to put in things because I studied a little bit of esotericism. I'm like, why are we doing this Kabbalistic thing in here? I know what this is. Why are we putting that in here, right? What's the intention of putting this little magical symbol from that tradition in here? And then they get startled that I know what it is, right? And that makes them a little agitated, because you're just supposed to do what they're asked, not actually know what they're asking you to do.
Sure. And like when they watch the horror movies, the symbols on the wall, when they want to show a satanic movie or a satanic scene, those are real symbols.
Absolutely.
And by watching them, those energies come into your environment. Yeah. And the incantations, sometimes we've heard, those are correct incantations. So they're reciting things they shouldn't be reciting on television. So you have to mute the sound so that incantation doesn't come into your home, because it's very difficult to leave these energies. So anything you call upon in Sufism, before any grace, before anything you do, you have to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in God from the accursed devil. So that's a barrier. When you break that barrier, you basically have to invite the devil into your existence. Otherwise, he can't come. That's why all the Dracula movies are showing you their disclaimer. They come as a handsome man and they tell the young girl, invite me in. Why would you invite you in? Why don't you just come in and then eat everybody? But they can't, and they have to show the disclaimer. So that's in Sufism and in Islam is our teaching. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in God from the accursed devil. So we try to live a life not breaking that. Don't invite the devil in. So when you summons them, conjure them with these incantations and these logos on TV shows or a Ouija board from Walmart, you're calling in very, very horrific beings. They don't leave, and they cause enormous amount of difficulty and hardship within an environment.
Shaykh, two very quick things I'll say. One is that I was in contact with the director, William Friedkin, of director of The Exorcist, and it's interesting because Friedkin is a believer in God, and he's actually a believer in exorcism because of his experiences on that film. Most people in Hollywood, they're like atheists or pretend to be atheists, but he said, no, I experienced actual spiritual horrific activity on the set of that. I know that this is a real phenomenon, and I've brought it into this world without realizing it. And then there's that very famous movie Nosferatu, which is the silent film of vampires. And I learned this and I was shocked. Someone who is in the spiritual community told me Nosferatu, the producers of that, were involved in an esoteric group in Germany, and the horrible vampire image was actually crafted upon the jinn that they worshipped. And they wanted to use Nosferatu as a way to bring that being into the physical world.
We have talks now on the secret of manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that we're a very powerful creation, right? So we have the ability by God's grace to manifest. So
manifest ourselves or manifest?
No, manifest everything. Everything is manifesting. So we'll go back to the beginning. Me and you are on an island and nothing's been created. And by inspiration, God gave us a hand and thumb, and you draw a circle. As a result, I go and build that circle. So now that which didn't exist begins to manifest onto this earth by inspiration. So all these buildings all around us and all that we've made came from where? It's beginning to manifest from our power to bring that. Otherwise, if we didn't have a thumb and God didn't put the inspiration, we'd still be living on a dirt island. So all of these things are manifesting by our power. Well, the devil knows that. So he wants us to manifest our worst desires, our worst things. So when somebody makes a horrific movie, a horrific demonic movie, the devil's inspiring him because he knows we have power. Manifest it, manifest it. And anything that you conjure up, it now is a result of manifestation. God brings it into existence because it can't exist without God saying, oh wow, I've never seen that before.
That is interesting because I've been asking this question, Cameron, haven't I, on these live streams that I
conjuring it is bringing it into this dimension. So we have a very powerful ability and the devil knows that, right? So then what's going on with Instagram? So the bad desire of somebody that used to stay dormant, oh, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. He comes and whispers, no, put your image out there, what you really want to be. And all of a sudden this image appears, this person appears, unclothed person appears, start doing all these bizarre things that wasn't them. And that now has so much power that it destroys even their own being. So there's a very real power of manifesting. And that's what's happening upon this earth, and people are manifesting all their worst characteristics and they're bringing it into this plane. And they can manifest the creatures, these demons, and conjure all these different types of things. So then when we understand how powerful the human heart is and the human soul is, that's why then to bring it towards the divine and the divine manifestation. That when you meditate and you contemplate, and the Prophet taught,
it does happen, I think, but I don't think most people can consciously control it. I think that it is an unconscious manifest. I mean,
well, that's what the secret was trying to teach. The secret was trying to teach that, but to conjure up a good parking space. Right? So they said, think about it, think I want this parking space. Yeah, it is true. So you will, but you'll be accountable to God that you use this for only your material gain. That's it. I gave you all this power and you just conjured up parking spaces. So that's what the devil is trying to do, is that get us to use our power in an inappropriate direction so that we're accountable to God. But when we don't understand how powerful we are, then yeah, all these things seem to be random. They're not random. The people wanted it, people desired it, and it begins to appear in their life. And that's why the old saying, be careful for what you pray for. It starts to happen. I don't like this, I don't like that, and oh, what's the kid's bothering me? And then what takes away the child? So everything we are accountable for. And that's why then all the spiritual teaching is that no, think good, pray good, have good actions. And all of a sudden you see that, all these blessings are coming into your life. Why? Because that good being that you've brought with your good deeds is now blessing you. You're continuously praying.
So prayer and meditation.
Prayer, meditation, and acts of selflessness. Feeding other people. Feeding yourself is good for your digestion. Feeding others is good for your soul.
Any truth to the notion that we each pre-selected our respective lots in this life, that we each chose to live our own lives for some reason? Almost like a question about karma in the Vedantic tradition.
Yeah, I think we talked about it in the handicapped child. Where we have a day called Alastu bi Rabbikum qalu bala. On a day of promises, God said that this is your destiny. Are you accepting it? And we said, Bala, yes, to the Divine, the Presence. And then we were cast upon this earth. So it was already pre-written what we would do and how we would do it, and would it be a hard life, an easy life? And again, because you have to have the notion that paradise is supreme, right? You want to come back and get the best real estate in paradise, because that lasts for eternity. Not to get a house on the material world only, but I want my eternal palace. It's eternal for me. So then the more testing, the more difficult the life that they took, well then you can imagine then they're sitting very nice in paradise.
Yeah.
So when we understand that, then when we see sick children, well those are very high level souls. A soul that God didn't want them to live 30 years and contaminate themselves with sins, and they lived 5 seconds, 5 breaths and they left because He didn't want them to be contaminated. So these are maybe cherubim and angelic souls that they have to, everything has to taste of death. So everything is going to come through this Mother Earth and head back out. So there's infinite wisdoms on why people come, why they live short lives, hard lives, long lives, bad lives, good lives, everything. The one who lives a bad life, then there's a wisdom in that they lived a bad life, but then there should be somebody that comes to intercede for them, that you are your brother's keeper. That when people are doing bad or they don't have enough, then the ones whom do good and have, they should be taking care of those, they should be praying for those. So there's a whole system that's been organized. It's just a matter of everybody trying to build themselves, and this world will be a better place. But when the haves don't care about the have-nots, then it looks like, yeah, a horrific world, but God didn't make that, the humans did. They didn't want to come and take care of anyone, but that wasn't the rule that they signed up for. They were supposed to make it and feed everybody. They were supposed to go out and teach people. They were supposed to go out and support people, and then we had an uplifting of our spiritual reality.